Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description. In Alex's mind all the while, the doubts that Alexis had been able to quash with relative ease were flourishing, boiling over, waiting to take over his thoughts. But he was determined. That could be seen in his eyes, as he held her, ready to throw Alexis out into the front yard. The front door was wide open. Alex tensed as he prepared to throw her out when Alexis got lucky. She simply disappeared. Alex had no clue where she went. She was just there one moment and gone the next. This confused Alex even more, to a greater degree than anything she had said. He closed the door and slowly paced the foyer. On the one hand, Alex thought, she just barged in and told me a bunch of crap that no one could prove. On the other hand, however, she had known a lot that almost no one else should have known. And what reason would she have to gather all that info? Could she be another candidate, wanting to get me out of the way to give her a chance? But she had said her name was Alexis Laura Harrison, which is the name I would choose, and I have told no one that. And of course there is the fact that she just simply disappeared. Could that have been her returning to the future? Alex stood there, at the foot of the stairs, and decided to call it off. It was just too strange, too much too fast. And, he realized as he looked at his watch, he would be really late even if he left now. So he picked up the phone and dialed the number of the institute. Hello, Dr. Thomas, this is Alex Harrison. Alex. How are you? Are you ready for today's procedure? Actually, I wouldn't be able to make it. And, he paused, his last chance to still go for the treatment. He decided, however, that however much he wanted it, it would hurt his friends and family excessively. A fact he had not considered before. And, I think that I have changed my mind in regards to the procedure. I'm sorry, Dr. Thomas, I just don't think it would be the best thing for me to do at this time. He heard a heavy sigh on the other end. The voice that came back was more tired and wary than the one which had responded to his call in the first place. Very well, Mr. Harrison. Are you sure? You won't get another chance at this in a while. Yes, Dr. Thomas, I'm sure, Alex said, with a firmness and certainty in the decision he had made. Well then, goodbye, he said curtly, then hung up before Alex could respond. Alex walked into his living room and sat on a couch facing his TV. He just sat there for a while, contemplating what he had done, and what he had not done. Then a thought occurred to him. How was it possible that the woman that he would have been, Alexis, could have come back in time to warn him not to undergo the procedure if Alexis no longer existed, now or at any point in the future? There would be no one to come back and change his mind. But at the same time, if there was no one to come back to warn him, he should still have gone to undergo the procedure. But in that case, Alexis would have existed to come back to stop him, which would mean there would have been no Alexis to come back and stop him. A cycle. No, a paradox. The grandfather's paradox they called it in college, I believe. Based on the idea that if I went back in time to kill my father's father, before the conception of my father, how would I have been born to go back to kill my grandfather? But in that case, my grandfather would have lived, hence I would have lived, and I would have gone back to kill my grandfather. The grandfather's paradox. Who knows how things worked out? Or who knows if they did? Alexis again found herself in the black void, and again the variously colored lights began to appear, dimly at first, then brighter, moving and shimmering like a kaleidoscope. Then, once the kaleidoscope of colors was very bright, they disappeared and were instantly replaced by the bright white dots, and they in their turn began spinning until they formed solid circles. The circles began moving up and down, forming the waves of light, and then there was a flash. Then another. Then a series of blue ones. Then a series of green ones. This was followed by a series of yellow ones, a series of orange ones, and finally a series of red ones. Then there was one great, bug, flash in which all the colors were displayed everywhere and yet did not coalesce to form white light. Then there was another white flash, followed by the familiar waves, followed by the circles, then the dots, the colors which faded into the back void, and then she was falling again. This time she landed in a white, spherical chamber, the time machine chamber. The door was immediately opened by those outside, and they rushed in, without a word, and dragged her forcefully out. She was about to protest when she smelled the burning. As she was dragged down the stairs from the platform, she saw several small fires in the machine. Could that have caused the strange flashes in the middle of the return? Alexis didn't know, but she was dumped right at the feet of Mt. Trent, Dr. Larson, and others, who looked at her with an angry stare. And that was when she noticed things were a bit different. She was no longer wearing the white t-shirt. It was black now. The backpack was also different. Most importantly though, she felt different and yet not so different. It was a familiar sensation. Alex patted himself down, confirming that she was now a he again, and thus the procedure had never taken place. He would live for a long time yet. Unless the stairs reflected the intentions of the crowd at whose feet he was laying. He carefully got up, brushing himself off, and confirmed he was not hurt. "Well, Mr. Harrison, you certainly know how not to follow instructions," Dr. Larson said, in a voice that was surprising in its calm relative to the fury of his face. "Excuse me," Alex responded, confused. One of the nearby engineers who had heard what he had said spoke up first. "You caused a damned paradox. You're lucky you didn't destroy the universe, or get yourself changed or something. You did, however, manage to destroy the time machine, you bastard." The crowd to his front nodded. Alex just stood there. He had accomplished everything he had set out to do, and he had gotten to travel in time. Alex knew it would be his first and last time though. I wonder, he thought, even as the crowd of project leaders began to express their anger at him, if those colored flashes during the return trip were caused by the paradox. It's curious. 2 weeks after the time travel incident, Alex returned to his home, the one he had so recently visited in the past. His family was all there, happy to see him again after 6 years. There was a lot he didn't remember about the 1 year of the 7 between the procedure that didn't happen in this timeline and his getting the government job to work on the time travel project. But he was able to wing it as it seemed nothing of importance had happened during that year. Things had changed over the past 6, however. His 2 younger brothers had both gotten married. One already had a boy and was expecting another boy, the other was expecting a girl. After his family left, Alex sat down in front of his TV. He thought about the events of the past 7 years. It had been exciting, but he was glad it was over. And his desire to become a woman was satisfied, and now no longer played any part in his mind. That's when Alex noticed that he had a message on the answering machine. It was only 2 days old. He played it. "Hello, Alex? I don't know if you remember me, but this is Harriet Walters. We met at Tony's bar about 6 years ago. Anyway, I heard from a friend who has a friend that you would be back in the near future. Would you perhaps be interested in getting together sometime in the next week or 2? Call me, my number is 265-782-2841.
Bye."
Alex sat back down on his couch and thought. Harriet Walters. Though he didn't know anything about he had met, known, or felt about Harriet in this timeline, in the one he remembered, they had been good friends. She can't have changed too much between timelines. There's only 7 years that are different, he thought. Yes, he would meet with her. perhaps something would come of it. His mind began to wander, and it finally settled on the paradox he had created. Obviously it had resolved itself. How, or why, he couldn't say. But the timeline had adapted itself to the paradox. Very interesting indeed, Alex thought. Alex smiled. The possibilities were endless. Author's note: the grandfather's paradox is a real construction, and it works just as I explained through Alex and Alexis above. What would happen to the universe if something like that happened, no one knows. There is a good chance that time travel backwards may be impossible. Or it could be possible, but you could travel no further back than the time when the machine was created. It is very complex, and there is no convenient way out of the paradox as I showed at the end of my story. So here's something to think about: if something along the lines of the above story really happened, what would happen when you reach the paradox? Something to chew on. Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.